The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to our DrivenCRM purchasing order training webinar today. Today we'll be discussing how to create and manage purchase orders within Driven, adding and receiving items, our inventory research feature, and also synchronizing with your QuickBooks data and the importance of that. So starting with that, purchase orders within Driven can be created in one of two ways. The normal method, or probably most common method, is using our Create New menu, and that would be creating a new purchase order, the last option in the menu selection here. So you'll choose this. This is creating a purchase order to purchase for stock or just a need from a vendor. So in this situation, you would first choose your vendor. Now, vendors have to exist within the Driven database already. One of two ways of getting a vendor into Driven, that is synchronizing your vendors with your QuickBooks company file, or adding it as a new account and contact here under the Create New menu, Prospects, Customers, Vendors, and setting its category to a vendor. So those will be the only names that show in this drop-down list when you're picking to create a new purchase order. So for this one, we'll say that we're making this purchase order to Milner's Office Supply and Equipment. Once we've chosen our vendor, we get to put a title on the purchase order. This is the subject line or the description, the title of the purchase order, if you will. It shows up in a lot of the workspace screens and gives you a basic brief description of the purchase order. So we'll call this one the test PO. Obviously, I've used that name before. Now, we identify with this some of the, as we refer to, header information regarding the purchase order, that top section of the purchase order, including who is the buyer or purchaser from within your company. So you'll pick from a drop-down list of names here. It defaults to the user who is logged in. Right, so it assumes that I'm going to be the purchaser, but that can be changed here. So I'll leave that as myself. The required arrival date field designates when you need this product to be received within your own company or sent to the customer. So my required arrival date for this one is, let's say, next Friday. So we'll pick the 22nd for that. If this purchase order is to fulfill an order for a customer, which we'll also talk about creating POs in another way to fulfill specific orders in a moment, but if you're creating this purchase order using this screen and you want to enter your customer's PO number, you can reference that information here. And my taxes, if needed by this particular vendor, if I get charged sales tax on items that I purchase, can be established here. Again, this would be set on the vendor account. If it already was established on their account, it would have come into here automatically. And being QuickBooks customers, you really only ever need to use tax code 1. Tax code 2 will not be required for you. My preferred ship method is how I want that vendor to ship the product to me. So this information, again, populates from my sync with QuickBooks based upon your shipping methods that are set up in your QuickBooks company file. So for now, I will go ahead and pick UPS on this one. Addresses that show over here are my basic company address that is set up into company setup. And I have other options to be able to select from if I had other addresses associated to my company. Now, there's nothing in here because it's a basic blank purchase order. So we go ahead and now choose our Save and Create option. This will get us a purchase order number, begin our purchasing screen, and let us fill in the rest of the information here. So here I have my ordering phase, or what is the status of this purchase order within Driven. And let's talk about what the different settings mean. Draft to us means it is similar to a request to the vendor for pricing. It's getting quotes or getting pricing information from the vendor. It is not an official, real committed purchase order yet. The same with pending approval. It would be a step further in your own internal designations to let you know that you had sent it to the vendor and you're waiting for either their approval or them to get back with you on pricing and you to approve it. So both of these steps, the draft and the pending approval phases, are kind of internal steps for you to designate what's going on with the purchase order, but they do not actually commit that purchase order or make it a confirmed PO yet. So that would be that center step there in between those two light blue lines of a confirmed purchase order. If I set a PO and Driven to that status, then that is what puts it into, in our inventory research screens when we look at them later, what we call the on order status. I would know how many are on order, when I expect to receive them, that kind of information. So confirmed purchase order makes it an official, committed product to be coming into you. The vendor acknowledgement might be a step internally, again, for you guys, of when the vendor says that they have shipped that product. So you would know, okay, vendor confirmed that they shipped it, acknowledge that it's gone from there, and maybe I get tracking information or something like that. My in receiving phase means that I am actively receiving product on this purchase order. So once product begins to physically come into my building, that's the status that I would want to set this to in order that everyone knows that it is receiving. And the last step, last phase for a purchase order, similar to a sales order anywhere within Driven, is to mark it as completed or in history. That means that this is a fully received, committed, closed purchase order. That PO will go over to QuickBooks as a closed purchase order. Everything on this PO should have already been received then. And it will go off my active purchase order screens then. So the phases are very important for some of the functionality and availability of features for you within that Driven purchase order. The buyer got listed here. The date it got entered automatically with today's date, as in the day I created the PO. My required date, when do I need it here? That should have carried over. Purchase order number, if I had entered it, would have come into here. And then there's the ability for you to input a custom status. So this is modifiable by you guys in case you need different steps in your purchasing process. Maybe you need to know that it's being sent to the California warehouse or ready for internal processing or something like that. You'd have other custom statuses that you can define using the Modify List option at the bottom, and then select here. My description came over as my test PO. Now I'm ready to go ahead and begin adding line items to this purchase order to see what I actually need to purchase and buy. So I choose this Add Line Items feature here. I'm presented with one of my similar inventory research screens where I look up product. Okay. Now, in addition to these screens here, when I change my visible columns on this inventory research screen, I have other features that I can add here. For instance, I would be able to see what my reorder point is established on this particular item, or how many I have already on other existing purchase orders. I'm also going to add the on sales order and available columns to you here. So you would be able to see some additional notes about this so that you can say, show me everything where my reorder point and sort it by that, or where I have a certain number of product available. Now, available to us means after orders have been fulfilled, how many will I have remaining? So this is going to be important from a purchasing perspective to be able to see, okay, after orders are fulfilled, I have -2 of this item already. I must have 2 orders out there because after everything is fulfilled, I have -4 available. Same with this custom build kit. I have 0 on hand, -4 available. So I need to purchase probably both of those products to be able to get enough in to fulfill my current orders. I also do not or have not yet established a reorder point for those particular items. I do know here that my black print fabric, I have a minimum stock level of 500. So I should keep 500 of this product on hand at all times. So just some basic information that you can see visually on screen here when you're adding items. In order to actually put the item on the purchase order, let's go buy one of these new coin combo packages. I'm going to double click on the item. That brings up my ability to add it to the purchase order, and I can say that I want to purchase 10 of this particular item. Now, the cost that shows here, well, let's continue down the list so I don't skip any of the columns here. The description that came in is the description from the part number as it got input from QuickBooks. I can change this specifically for this PO. If I need to put a special note or something on it, I can do that in the description column, or I can add line comments to it as well to put a special note on it. Now, the unit of measure feature, if you're using within Driven, gives you the capability to add different units of measure to purchase this item in. I have none defined or identified for this. Where this is useful is in the case of if you purchase something by the roll or by the yard and you sell it or use it by the inch or the foot. You could say that you want to purchase 1 yard of this product, and then in our company setup you define how many inches are in a yard, and it would convert that information for you out to inches or however you sold it. And so that's our unit of measure feature if you choose to use it and add it. Our cost box shows as a 0 right now, and it's in gray because the 0 is our most recent cost for this item, or the cost that came over potentially from QuickBooks. All right. So that's a 0 right now. Obviously, I need to override that. I'm going to check this here. It ungrays that box and gives me the opportunity to input my purchase price. Maybe they're $25.99 each, or $258.99. Okay. If the vendor has a different part number that they refer to this, okay, my part number was coin combo. But if Milner calls it something else, they call it a coin pack, I can input that here. Now, when we get to our inventory research screen, I will show you how to specify and identify that moving forward, permanently linked to this vendor as well. But this is a one-time override of the part number from the vendor side. Now I'm able to see which warehouse I want to receive that into. This is which location or physical warehouse I have set up within Driven. I have 2 warehouses defined. I have my default warehouse where I have 0 on hand, and my California warehouse where I have 0 as well. I can receive this item into either warehouse. So we'll say that we're going to put this one into the default warehouse. Then whether or not I get charged sales tax on this item from the vendor needs to be identified. And as I mentioned, the line comments note. So if I want to put a comment here to be able to add an extra note to this vendor where I say, please ship ASAP, parcels are okay. So a special note particular to this item on this purchase order. Now, I save that item. That adds that particular item to the purchase order so I can see it down here, and I can continue adding other items. So let's add my custom build item as well that I need to fulfill here. So we'll double click on that one. And we'll say that we need to order 5 of those. Again, we'll have to override the cost. $15 on that one, and we'll save that item and return. So this search screen is going to give you the ability to look up and add as many different items to this purchase order as you like. As with any of our other adding screens within Driven, you can filter and search or scroll within this screen up here at the top anytime you like. If I want to sort everything for me by my available, and then I obviously have -27 of this product. I can analyze and see different things where I can search for things I need. I know that I have a keyboard I need to order. I can search by their description. Okay. Oh, I have plenty of those on hand. I don't need to order it. Once all items have been added to that particular purchase order, you're going to press the Return to Order screen in the upper left-hand corner. And those line items are now added to that particular PO. And if I, again, were just checking availability, checking pricing from that vendor to get a confirmation, I'm going to go ahead and send that to the vendor, either via email or by actually printing it and mailing it to them, faxing it to them, doing whatever. Right? Or I can simply call them on the phone, confirm up via the phone. All right? Let's use the email example. So I choose the email icon over here on the right-hand side. That saves that particular purchase order as an attachment here in yellow automatically. Starts me a email communication to the vendor. Okay, now I'm going to go pick a vendor email address. Apparently there wasn't one linked to that particular vendor. So Milner must not have an email address. Milner Office Equipment, email address is missing. Okay, so that's why it didn't populate automatically. But I can email it to myself, or I can manually type in the vendor's email address. So this is milner@milner.com. So options for you there. When you're using multiple email addresses, if you are manually typing them in anywhere in the Driven screens, please separate them with a semicolon. That's what we're going to use in between email addresses. Now, my information, who it's coming from, my name, my email address got populated automatically. The subject line got filled in with the PO number. And then I would put in the details of my message. Please confirm pricing. And availability. Okay. Then I'd click the send email button. That email goes off to the vendor. Okay, and that is an open existing draft status purchase order. Okay. So now if I go, let's make a new workspace here for purchase orders. So I'll make a purchasing workspace. So that we can see a lot of our purchasing functions here. Let's go look at purchase orders. And vendors. Okay. So I see my open purchase order here that's been sent off to the vendor. I can update it. I can do whatever I need to with it. Let's say that Milner's calls back and says, no, that pricing is not accurate. This is actually $17 on that custom build kit. So I can modify that by double-clicking on the line item on the purchase order. Opens up the details of that, and I can change the cost on that. So I can change that to $17 each. Okay. Save item and return. Now, I can see all of my information here when I'm ready to change the status of this. So let's go to my ordering phase here and change it from a draft to a confirmed purchase order. And I'll save that. Next, I want to show you, let's go make one other workspace called inventory. And show you what shows up there. So here, if I'm working with my item list, which is inventory and other items, let me see, I want to show both things. I want to show all active items, which is my whole item list. And at the bottom here, in my item list, I want to show low inventory stock, or items that are below their reorder point. All right, so a lot of different options for you there in the inventory screen. So I would be able to see, oh, I need to order that interface kit here. Apparently, it's telling me that I'm below my minimum stock level on that. Okay. And here are all of my items in the system. Now, when I look at this column, I'm going to change my visible columns and show the on sales order, available, on purchase order, and reorder point options. So here now I'm going to be able to see, when I go back to my, inventory, It's alphabetically listed. I lost my workspace there. Here is my custom build item. There was my custom coin combo. And I can see I have 0, 4 on a sales order, -4, and I can see that I have 5 on a purchase order. And that's on the purchase order because it is a confirmed purchase order. I also see that I have 10 of my coin combos on that PO as well. Now, let's talk now about our inventory receiving steps. So in order to physically get this product into on-hand stock, available for sale, available for shipping, I would need to receive that item on the purchase order. So I'm going to go back to my purchasing workspace here, open up that open PO, and I'm going to begin receiving items on it. So down at the bottom here, I click the Receive Items option, and I'm able to begin receiving. Here I see how many are on the purchase order. If I have done any partial receiving prior to this, I would be able to see that here, that I had already received a portion of that. And here in green are what needs to be received, what's yet remaining open on this purchase order, in other words. So in order to receive them, I have one of two options. If I receive this entire purchase order complete, then all I have to do right now is hit this Select All button that's in the left-hand side of the screen. Got top left here that's flashing. So I press Select All, and it adds those line items to the current receipt area. However, if I only received a portion of this top item, maybe I only got 5 of the 10 packages, I would double-click on that particular item. It adds it to the current receipt screen down at the bottom, and I can modify the quantity. So here is where I would say I only received 5. Okay. If I also received all 5 of the custom build items, I can double-click on that item, and that is going to add that down to the current receipt area as well. So you can receive as many line items on this purchase order as you would like in this one receipt. Once I've got all my items on here that I want to receive, I press the Finalize Receipt button. Those items get processed, and I can choose to either do another item receipt, or I can say I'm done, I'm returning to the order, which is what I want to do for now. So right now, we'll save that. I still have 5 items pending to be received on that order. If anyone goes to my inventory menu here now, and they go look at my custom build item, they can see I physically have 5, 4, and still should say 5 remaining out there on the PO. Don't know why that didn't update properly. Now, what also happens behind the scenes based upon me doing that item receipt, when I come back in here, I see the item receipt down here at the bottom, and what had been received is, now, depending upon the platform that I'm using, I, in all of my webinar setups, are using the Intuit IPP platform, which means I signed up via the Intuit Marketplace, and my information communicates directly to the Intuit server version of my company file. In that case, my item receipts are queued up in the Options and Utilities area in my QuickBooks Data Sync. Okay. So they are posted over to QuickBooks only when I do this process. So I see here my sync from Driven and QuickBooks. I have purchase order information to be sent over. 1 is pending. And I can send that over to QuickBooks now using this feature. If you are on-premise install of Driven, where you have it locally installed within your own company and it's communicating directly with your QuickBooks company file, then that process, any processes going from Driven to QuickBooks, happen automatically just based upon you doing that item receipt. Receiving that item would be what posts that transaction over to your QuickBooks company. So that purchase order's out there. It's still pending, still waiting to receive those 5 items that are on there. and it will stay open. Okay. One of two options for you. When the either remaining items come in and I want to receive them, I'm going to open up that purchase order. I still have it open over here. Or if I want to cancel the remainder, the vendor says, you know what, it's going to be 2 weeks before I get the rest of those in there. Do you still want to wait? Okay. I would have the capability of canceling the remaining items on this purchase order. Because you will notice I start receiving these items, I can't really delete them from the purchase order anymore because partials have been received already. So up until I've received anything, I could delete them from the PO. But once I've begun receiving, I can't delete the entire line item because something has already happened with part of it. So in order to cancel the remaining 5 on here, what I would do is I would want to modify this particular part, this line item. So I double-click on that line item there, and it will tell me that some of it's been received. Okay. Normal editing, like changing of pricing, changing of quantity, that kind of thing is not allowed. But I do have the option to cancel the remaining items on here. So once I've received everything I'm going to accept on this purchase order, I'd be able to do this option here, cancel remaining, and it would automatically go back and adjust my quantity to whatever had been received so far. And then I can mark this purchase order as completed in history, save that. It gets that purchase order off my active POs screen. When I come back here, I no longer have any open purchase orders. And it again is going to put something into my QuickBooks Data Sync to say that it needs to close out that purchase order. So once I post that action over to my QuickBooks company file, that's going to close out the PO. All right, and put the item receipt in there. Depending upon the selection that I made in my company setup, it is going to potentially put the bill into QuickBooks as well. Now, being an IPP type customer, again, I posted that over to the information that is in the Intuit server here, the cloud in other words, but that might not come down to my local QuickBooks company file until I do one of their syncs. Okay, my next sync, my next update from the cloud is not scheduled to happen until 3:55. But I'm going to go ahead and synchronize now and make that information come over to my local QuickBooks company file. Okay, so that's going to happen here. That's going to update my QuickBooks file. I do want to open QuickBooks so that you guys can see where that comes in, how it looks, and what happens. And then I'd like to talk in a little bit more detail as well about that inventory research screen. My upload is taking a bit of time this time. My QuickBooks company file is kind of small, so it usually doesn't take very long. But it looks like it's having issues today. Now, I don't want to open my QuickBooks. There we go. 40% complete. We're halfway, almost halfway there. There. All right. So that has happened. So now if I go into my Start menu and I go to my QuickBooks file and open my QuickBooks company, close out the Sync Manager, we'll open up my test. Did I say create a new file? Meant to open that file. Okay. So now my QuickBooks opens. I don't know how many windows I had opened here. I've got my vendor center open behind here, so I have my Milner office equipment. I have my POs here. Apparently my purchase order did not post over. Let me go look in my vendor center in my purchase orders for my most recent PO. That was a mouse back in February. Okay. Maybe I had an error. Let's go to my sync and view my sync log. Two errors. See, my general ledger accounts aren't matching. It tried to create that new part number, and it could not. So I'm receiving an item that doesn't exist within QuickBooks yet, and it tried to create that item for me. So if I go back to my item list, I must not have, let's see, my coin combos in there, but my other custom one is not in this list yet. So it was trying to create that as a new part, and it couldn't reference the same inventory income account, uncategorized income, that didn't exist in my QuickBooks company file. So I need to resolve that issue before that purchase order can successfully post over. But what I do want to show you is, let's go actually make another purchase order in a different way. So let's make that purchase order that I was mentioning in the other way, of being able to fulfill something specifically for a customer order. In an example, let's go back to my inventory tab here. And I've got low stock on this item. Let's see, I want to configure this workspace again. Make it a 3-panel because I want to see everything that's out there on pending orders. So configure the bottom panel here as in my item list and items on unshipped sales orders. So here is product that I need to ship out to customers. Okay, and I can see, for instance, my buttons, I do not have enough on hand to fulfill. So I need to obviously probably order some of those. Okay. Sorry, I wanted to click on it just once. When I look up my buttons in our inventory research screen, so now if I could see what orders that was outstanding on. Okay. Through this item research screen, I'm able to see, okay, button, what are you used on? So I have this button here. Clicking once shows me the detail of this. How much stock do I have? I have -8 on hand, none on sales orders right now, okay, according to this. My purchase history is who I've ever bought this from, and quote history, who I've ever quoted it out to. So I have a proposal out there for Barb's Shopping Store for 4 of them. My order history is what customers have bought this from me in the past. Okay. Then I have registered product, which we'll come back to in a few minutes when we're doing inventory research. The reason I wanted to show this to you here is because I have this pending potential order out here for the Barb's Shopping Store. I want to see the details of that order and what I'm going to need to do to fulfill that. So if I click on that, that is going to open. Should have opened in a new window. Don't know why it opened in that same window low down there for me. But I see right here, okay, this particular order is in the quotation proposal status, so has not been committed from the customer yet, but I can see that there are 4 buttons right here. Okay, and there's a note from me, from the salesperson, that says it's a special button, must be ordered in advance, and it takes a 3-week lead time. Okay. Now, in order to modify this particular order and make it a sales order, which would put it on my confirmed sales order needs to be ordered area, okay, we're going to save changes to that. That now gives me the ability, now I have a new option in my line items area to be able to create purchase orders. So from the sales order screen, if I choose this, create POs, that will allow me to buy product to specifically fill this particular order. So I see this item here, custom 3-inch button. I'm going to need to order that one. So I individually double-click on items here. Or I can do them all at once by pressing the Select All button, if I need to buy everything on here. And I'm buying it all from the same vendor, because you need to do this one vendor at a time. So if the button comes from somebody different than the combo kits come from, I need to do them one vendor at a time. So let's do just the button for now. So I double click on the button. Okay. Down at the bottom here, it begins a purchase order. And I would say that I need to purchase this from which vendor. So we're going to buy this from Lowe's. Okay. And I'm buying 4 of them. Now, I am done with this for now. Maybe this is the only purchase order I want to create for now. I'm going to choose to finalize that PO to Lowe's for the 4 buttons. Okay. PO number 300,003 got processed, and I'm in the screen to purchase other product. Okay. I don't want to purchase any other product, though. I'm going to press Done, Return to Order. Now, within that order here, I'm able to see in the right-hand column the link of the purchase order number that got created for that. So Driven created a PO to Lowe's for that particular item to specifically fulfill that order for that customer. Now let me get out of my inventory research screen then. I want to come back to my purchasing screen. I'll go back to my purchasing here. And that purchase order got created in a draft status. All right. Now, I must not have had any costing information on that particular order for that button again. So obviously, I would want to update that. Okay, so in my button here, I'm going to now say that the button cost me $2.50 each. And I save that and return to the order. I can update my other information, like when I need this by. I need this by Tuesday, so we'll put the 19th in there. Okay. Where this needs to ship to. Okay. Any financial settings, those payment terms, things like that. And any receipt settings of how you want it shipped and when the vendor tells you that it's going to ship can be updated over here on the right-hand side. And this information is available. This is just like any other purchase order once it got created, guys. So it is, although it is linked to the sales order, it functions as far as receiving, updating, changing information on it, just like any of the other regular purchase orders. Okay. And a status note may also be added here similar to our sales order screen. So I want to add a status note here of special button quote confirmed with Joe at Lowe's. Okay. We'll save that. So now I have that special note noted on this PO. Okay. And I'll save changes here. So that's still in my draft status. All right. Now, the button, let me see if my button exists within QuickBooks. Yes. Okay, so button is an existing part number in my QuickBooks company file. So I'm going to go ahead and receive this then. So go through all of our steps. We'll make the status. Now, the status can be anything above confirmed purchase order for me to begin receiving items, as it mentions here. So I can, for now, put this as completed in history, do my item receipt, all in the same step here. Say that I want to select all. I got everything in here. I'm going to finalize that receipt, press Done, and save that. So now this purchase order has been fully received, and it's gotten closed out. Under my options and utilities, I'm ready for it to post over to QuickBooks. Okay. So I'm ready to send that to QuickBooks. And then I'll do my data sync, and you'll see it come over into there. Okay. So we'll close that window. Go do my data sync. Now while the data sync is happening, I want to look at a few more things in inventory research there. So we'll sync now. So in our lookup inventory research screen, very powerful tool available to your salespeople for viewing, available to purchasing people in order to look up part numbers and or modify parts as well. Because if I have the access level, I'm going to be able to edit that part and update costing and pricing and that kind of information. But from a view capability screen, when I go look at information here, like my custom build item, in my purchase history, I'm going to see that that particular item, because I saw in my detail screen how many were on order. Oh, I fully received that one, didn't I? My coin combo still says it has some items, what are called, quote unquote, on order, meaning there is a pending receipt that has not been processed yet for this particular part number. So I still have 5 coming in. All right. And if I want to see the details of that, I go to my purchase history tab here, and I see, okay, there's that PO number 300,002 to Milner's office equipment, and it's expected to arrive on July 22nd. That was based upon that required arrival date information that I entered in the top of the purchase order. So very easy tool to have all your salespeople current and up to date on when a product is expected to arrive. They would be able to clearly communicate to a customer, you know what, I only have one right now, but next Friday I'm going to be getting 5 more, so I can get them to you by then. You'd have that knowledge and that capability from this inventory research screen. Now, the other tabs that were across the top here that we briefly touched on, a couple of them. The details tab is the main tab that you see. It gives you some basic information about this particular part number, what type of an item it is, because the item types come over automatically from QuickBooks in the same way. Okay, so that happened. In other words, if it's an inventory type item in my QuickBooks company file, it has to be an inventory type item in QuickBooks, in Oasis, Driven as well, sorry. Too many programs there. If it's a non-inventory item, so we work with inventory, non-inventory, assemblies, service items, and other type items. Those communicate back and forth between Driven and QuickBooks. Okay, so very important for that that type matches between the two files. The categories are how you organize and group things within Driven. You can put an item into a product category. This is hardware or a general product or used for repairs or something like that. You can group and organize things within Driven. We talk about those when we talk about inventory setup, by the way, and how to do those. I can specify who the manufacturer of this particular item was. Now, this is not to be confused with the vendor that I purchase it from. This is who physically made that piece of equipment. Doesn't matter to me that I buy this from Milner's Office Supplies. I want to know that Hewlett-Packard made it. It's a Hewlett-Packard product. Okay. The part number for that item, that again comes over from QuickBooks' item name / number field. Description on the item is called item name for us. The standard default retail price of the item. Then I have updated information here. My last cost is the cost I just received this at, because that new PO that I made where I said it was $25.99 each got updated automatically into here based on me creating that purchase order. It also updates my average cost then on the items. And the storage or location is what we call a bin number or location for this item. Where do I keep or store this product, in other words? So you have the capability to denote that so you know where to put it away on the warehouse shelves and where to pull that order from as well. Okay. And then the right-hand area of this item as well shows me how many I physically have on hand. Again, to Driven, this means that is the number sitting on the warehouse shelf right now. If I were to go out and count this item, I should have 3 sitting out there. Okay. Allocated means there are 2 on a committed sales order that have not shipped yet. I think QuickBooks calls this on sales order in their columns as well. The on order item is how many are on a purchase order that have not received in yet. And then lastly, I show my total available for sale after other orders have been fulfilled. So right now, after the 3 I have on hand, I ship out 2. I have 1 more sitting on the shelf that I can still sell. So that's all available to you in the detail screen of an item here. And as I click between different items, I'm going to see different information down here at the bottom. Back to my main coin combo item here, I want to look up some more detail on it. My stock tab is going to show me physically in which warehouses those items are located. Because in my case, I have 2 warehouses. I have my default warehouse and my California location. Okay, I can receive items into either warehouse and or sell items out of either warehouse. Okay, so I've got 2 that are supposed to ship out of California, but I don't have it in California. I've got them in my default warehouse. And when we talk about order processing, we talk about transferring stock and moving this product from this warehouse to the other warehouse. So there is the capability to do that, to transfer that product to the other warehouse so you can sell it and use it out of that warehouse. Okay, but here's where you visually see that information. Okay. Purchase history, we already talked about. Quotation history is what customers have I quoted this to. Okay, so I've quoted this particular coin combo to these 5 customers, okay, on different quotation numbers. Okay, apparently I added this as a line item multiple times on the same order number. Don't know why I did that, but I was testing. My order history are actual orders that have been placed as sales orders in the system. So I'm able to see that Fiddler Consulting bought 2 of these coin combos, and they have both already shipped. Universal Studios purchased 1, and that one has not shipped yet. Okay, so that one still needs to be fulfilled. That order needs to be completed and shipped out and invoiced. Okay. The registered product tab of an item. The coin combo is a bad example because it's not what I call a trackable item or something that has a serial number recorded to it. But any items that do have that, I know my black fabric, for instance, has a lot number in it. So I have some registered product for that one that I know that the Barb shopping store owns serial number 1234 of this particular part number. So that was sold and invoiced to them. If an item within Driven is what is called tracking the serial numbers or tracking a lot number, then every time I receive that item and or every time I ship that item, Driven will ask me to input the serial number or input the lot number. And it will track that as I sell it directly to that particular client. My stock transfers tab is where I'm going to be able to see any pending uncompleted transfers between warehouses. So as you do transfers within Driven, you mark them as finalized when they're approved, finished, and received into the other warehouse, and then they go off the screen. While they're pending or in progress, they show in the Stock Transfers tab so that you can monitor those and complete those. And the last tab here in Inventory Research is what is called the Related Configuration tab. I'm going to go back to my coin combo here because that one actually has some items configured. Oh, that's coin combo number 2. Okay. My custom build item has items incorporated inside of it. So it has 1 coin combo part number P64 and 3 dollar coin boxes part number P66 to use this item. Now, the Related Configuration tab is going to show you any details either from an inventory assembly and how that assembly is built out of QuickBooks or a group item as it's set up in QuickBooks. Because QuickBooks has both of those which have parts inside of them. And Now within Driven, when you're looking up this particular item, let's say I want to see, because I have a couple of groups in here and some assemblies. So let me look at all my assemblies. Okay, so my interface kit is an assembly within QuickBooks. Okay. Under my related configuration menu, I can see how that assembly is built. Right now, I have, after I fulfilled all my orders, no more of this particular item available for sale. So if I would need to build some more, Driven is always going to show you here how many you have of the component items to potentially build this assembly kit out of these parts. So you're always going to be able to see on this inventory research screen that, you know what, I don't even have enough product to build one of these kits. So that's available to you and visible to you from the inventory research screen. A lot of detail here, a lot of information that you can see, get. Your salespeople have access to this. All purchasing people have access to this. So you can look up all the detail about part numbers directly from within Driven. But the inventory research area is a view-only area. If you want to modify the part, you'd have to have the proper accesses, and we'd show you how to do that during our inventory maintenance webinar. Now, that information should have, my purchase order that I synced over with the buttons should have come here over to QuickBooks now. So now if I go to my button, it's a non-inventory part, I should be able to see my purchase order. I forgot who, I think I did that one to Lowe's. There's my customer center. Where's my vendor center? Vendors. Okay. I have Lowe's as a vendor here, and I can see my purchase order, item receipt, $3,003, okay, and it's going to accounts payable for $10. So if I open up that item receipt in here, I see that mine is set to be item receipt only. My company setup is not set to mark it as a bill. Okay, and I see the button on there for the custom buttons and that there's 4 of them. So that information got posted over to QuickBooks automatically when I did that data sync option. Okay. So that's in here now. Now, let's spend the last few minutes in here then talking about the kind of information that syncs back and forth between Driven and QuickBooks and the importance of that, because it is possible for you to still create new vendors, do your purchasing functions within QuickBooks, and then tell that to update Driven. Okay? So you can do things in either application if you'd like to. Okay? There is the capability to do that. However, please note that anything you do directly within QuickBooks will need to be manually updated into Driven. If, for instance, I come here into QuickBooks, let me close out my vendor center here, go back to my items list here, and I want to come in, I go do a physical count. So my inventory part here for mice says that I have -4 according to QuickBooks. Well, I want to fix that. We went out, we did a count. We really don't have -4. We have 10 sitting on the shelf. Okay, so in QuickBooks, I'm going to go and say that I need to, and forgive me, I'm not a QuickBooks expert here, adjust quantity value on hand. That's what I want to do. So I'm doing this directly within QuickBooks, and I'm saying that my mouse, I really have 10, and I want to adjust that to an income account of depreciation, let's say. Okay. And we'll save and close that out. So now my quantity within QuickBooks has been updated. I have 10 on hand. I need to communicate that over to Driven, though. And the way that you do that, well, first, my data sync would have to happen to update the cloud. So let's go sync now. We'll get that started. So that information would need to post up to the cloud, and then it would need to be synced over to Driven. And bringing information to Driven is done if I'm an IPP type customer, which I am, under the QuickBooks Data Sync menu, and then I choose Sync from QuickBooks to Driven. The types of information that can be synced in are in this drop-down list here. I can bring in the customer list, the vendor list. update the entire item list, which checks new parts, on-hand quantities, pricing, description changes, any of those kind of updates to anything in the item list out of QuickBooks would be done under the item list sync. I can also bring in employees from QuickBooks, which will create them as employees into Driven. The codes option, if I choose to do that one, is going to bring in shipping methods, payment terms, general ledger account information. And so any of that other kind of information that's available on some of the QuickBooks drop-down boxes and on screens would be brought in using that codes data sync. And then the last are our sales tax codes, because as I mentioned in other areas of the software, anytime you update sales tax rates, that has to be done in QuickBooks, because QuickBooks is always going to control your sales tax calculations, and then it would need to be synchronized into Driven. So here, let's go see if my sync manager sync finished. Okay, we'll close that out. And now we're going to let me close this out here. Right now, if I'm in my inventory screen and I go look up a mouse, let's see what Driven says right now. So Driven says I have -4 on hand as well. Okay. When I do my Intuit data sync, though, and I say that I want to go synchronize the item list, that will do that one individual item only. I press Sync Now. That communicates to the QuickBooks company file and is going to update my information over here within Driven. So that does the entire item list. Okay, and we'll update everything over here. So now in my inventory screen, if I go again, look up mouse, I'm able to see that there are 10 on hand. So it has resolved that inventory discrepancy. So anything, if I did a purchase order, which changed my on-hand quantity or something like that, if I did a direct modification of this within QuickBooks, all of that information has to be communicated to Driven manually via that sync. So that is always a manual step no matter which platform you're on. The other way of communicating between Driven and QuickBooks is that pushing of information from Driven to QuickBooks. And that, depending upon which platform you're on, either happens automatically or is a manual step. So IPP Intuit Marketplace-based customers, if you have this menu up at the top of your screen, you always have to post that information over from Driven into QuickBooks using the options and utilities, QuickBooks Data Sync, and going to the sync from Driven to QuickBooks. I know activity right now needs to be transmitted, so every time you need something to post over to QuickBooks, you need to do that option if you're using the Workplace feature. If you are an on-premise install of Driven, you have it locally on your own servers, then anytime you do transactions throughout the day in Driven that require communication to QuickBooks, that happens real-time automatically. So Driven determines that it needs to communicate to QuickBooks. It posts that information over to the QuickBooks company file, and everything is set automatically. Okay. So guys, that concludes our information regarding purchasing within Driven and the purchasing features of our software. Any questions that you had regarding that I can answer? If you type your question over into the question panel, I'll try and answer them if there are any. Okay, doesn't look like anybody has any questions at this time that I can answer, so that'll go ahead and conclude today's session. Please look at the training calendar. If you need to attend the session again, you're more than welcome to. We update that periodically, and also you have the capability to ask questions via the Driven Answer Express option or our customer care pages as well to open support tickets. Thanks for attending and have a great day.